How's it going, folks? You might remember during the postseason of the NFL last year, I did these videos about my predictions for the wild card, the divisional round, the championships, as well as the Super Bowl in general. And I had fun doing that. Plus, I'm trying to get more into the world of doing more sports-based videos. I just did the live rewatch of the Steelers-Falcons game on the last Reviewing Network Live episode, which you want to go check that out. I'll leave a link to that in the corner. But there's probably going to be more of these coming up down the road, and I kind of have some ideas of what I want to do for like a sports sub channel, if you will. Maybe not just maybe not its own channel, but a sub channel, like a sub channel within the channel itself. But I figured why not go ahead and do this for the regular season as well. I didn't do the ones for last week because I just literally came up with this idea a couple of days ago. But if you want to see my week 1 predictions, there they are right there. And I got 12 out of 16, which is 75%, which is not bad when you really think about it in general. But yeah, I didn't do too bad with that 12 out of 16. So pretty good start to the season for me. So let's go ahead and take a look at week 2. And we start off, of course, with Thursday Night Football, when the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. Now, both teams won this week. Buffalo came back after Arizona took like a 17-0 lead at one point during the game, and then Josh Allen did what he did best, and it just proved that, hey, he didn't really need Stephon Diggs. He can do it himself, although he has a hand injury, but they did say he was going to play. Miami also had a comeback as well against Jacksonville. Jacksonville was up like 17-0, and then Travis Etienne fumbles the football, and then Miami just took over after that. They don't look like the dominant team that they did last year, but then again, there was also that controversy with Tyreek Hill at the beginning before the season even began. That's still going on to this point, but Miami and Buffalo tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. I'm gonna go with the Miami Dolphins. I'm gonna say that they use the home field advantage to their advantage. I think Miami is a better put-together team than Buffalo is. Buffalo played an Arizona Cardinals team that we really don't know if they're going to be as good as they were in that last half of the season when they beat teams like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. And, we haven't heard a lot from Keon Coleman, but the rookie that they got to replace Stephon Diggs. But we'll see what happens. But I'm going to say Miami wins this one. I think Miami goes to 2-0 to start the season. I say they win over Buffalo. Moving on to Sunday's games, the New York Jets over the Tennessee Titans. Jets had something going on Monday night. Aaron Rodgers at least got through a full game until they decided to take him out at the end for no particular reason. I mean, Aaron Rodgers hasn't played a full game since he was in Green Bay. Think about that. And they took him out of that 49ers game because the 49ers were just beating them that badly. Even though the Jets had the early lead, they just never were able to get back on track, and they couldn't stop Jordan Mason from just running all over them. But I'm not really ready to say that the Jets are completely screwed just yet. It wasn't Aaron Rodgers' fault that they lost. That was Robert Saleh, because, Robert Saleh, you would think that a former coach of the 49ers would want to go into San Francisco and show your old team what your new team is able to do now that Aaron Rodgers is healthy again. And they just fell apart because they just couldn't stop this rookie, not even a rookie, but an undrafted free agent that was not even supposed to play, that didn't even know he was going to play until that Friday, and wasn't revealed to everyone until 90 minutes before the game even started because Christian McCaffrey wasn't playing. But I'm not ready to give up on the Jets just yet, but it's a team that we should definitely be on the alert for because they have no excuses now. If Aaron Rodgers is there, and now it's time to put up or shut up. But the Tennessee Titans are a team that I feel like is clearly in a rebuild right now. Will Levis showed a lot of promise in the second half of the season. Looked promising over the Bears at first, but then the special teams and defense for the Bears just came up and just rolled all over them. But I'm going to say the Jets win this one. I think I'm going to give the Jets the benefit of the doubt. Let's see what they can do against a team that's not very good in general with the Tennessee Titans. I feel like they're a team that's in rebuilding mode because they don't have Derrick Henry. They don't have a steady wide receiving core, even though they have DeAndre Hopkins and Tyler Boyd. But I don't know. The Titans still feel like a team that's rebuilding because they have a new head coach in Brian Callahan. The Jets have a lot more to prove. I think the Jets go into this one beating Tennessee. I say Jets 1-1, Titans 0-2. Two teams that lost last week, the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cleveland Browns. I think Jacksonville wins this one. I think Jacksonville show that they are still a capable team. They just got to be able to finish games. I mean, like I said, they were up 17-0 against Miami, and then they just fell apart in the second half after that Travis Etienne fumble. The Browns, I feel like, are just a complete mess, and they're not going to stop being a mess until they do something about Deshaun Watson, because it's pretty clear now that this deal that they have for Deshaun Watson is going to end up being one of the worst trades in NFL history. And it doesn't help that the controversies with him continue to grow, like the one that came out this week. I just don't think the Cleveland Browns are that team they were last year when, Deshaun Watson got injured, and the team actually got better under Joe Flacco, which should pretty much tell you right there that there should probably be some consideration for quarterback changes. But now I think Jacksonville wins this one. I think Jacksonville goes to 1-1. The Browns drop to 0-2. Moving on, two teams that also lost this last week, the Las Vegas Raiders and the Baltimore Ravens. Everyone expects a lot more from the Baltimore Ravens, especially considering that, they were in that game against the Chiefs, but the Chiefs are the Chiefs. They're just going to find a way to beat you no matter how hard you try, and that's just one of the reasons why they've been such a dominant team over the years. The Ravens, I feel like, are a lesser team than they have been the last couple of years. I feel like last year was their last big chance to really prove to everybody that this was their time, and they just couldn't finish the job, especially considering that they were the home favorites in the AFC Championship game, and they almost had that win against Kansas City if Isaiah Likely's feet weren't as big as Sideshow Bob's, pretty much. But the Las Vegas Raiders are a team that's very questionable too. At times they looked like they had promise against the Chargers, but they feel like a lesser team than they did last year. I mean, I'm pulling for Antonio Pierce's as a head coach. I really do think that he's got these guys hoping again, especially with the way they ended the season last year. I really do feel like they're going to go into Baltimore and just get pummeled by them, because Baltimore, I think, needs to win this game in order to keep themselves relevant. And Baltimore usually steps up to the challenge when they're in desperation mode like this. So Ravens 1-1, Raiders 0-2. The Russell Wilson revenge game, we think. Pittsburgh Steelers and the Denver Broncos. Steelers are actually the road favorites now, but last week I'm glad they won, but for some reason I came out of that game feeling hollow and empty still, because it did not feel like a different team than it was last year, when Kenny Pickett was under center. And I feel like that Justin Fields, as good of a job he didn't turn the ball over, he got them in positions to score points, but that's not something that's going to work every single week, and especially with a team like Denver, who did show brief flashes of promise last week against Seattle, but just couldn't get the job done because the Seahawks defense looked much better than they did. But this is definitely one of those games that has me worried for a number of different reasons. One, Mike Tomlin has never beaten Sean Payton before. The 3 times he's played against Payton when Payton was coaching the Saints, he lost all 3 times, and the last one was just that brutal one that basically killed the Steelers' 2018 season and knocked them out of the playoffs, even though they still had a chance the following week. But of course, Antonio Brown kind of screwed. It didn't have any favors on that one. But Mike Tomlin's never beaten Sean Payton before, and Denver, when they play the Steelers, it's always the one that's always the hardest ones to usually win. Like, this is a team that usually could beat them. Like, they went through, it's like that 2005 AFC Championship game. Steelers went to Denver, beat them there, but the Tim Tebow game, the 2015 wild card divisional round game, that 2018 debacle with Case Keenum was the quarterback, that's got me worried. I know. I know Bo Nix isn't really that good of a quarterback right now, but nobody really thought the same thing about Patrick Mahomes in 2018 in the second week of the season when the Steelers had hosted the Chiefs, and then all of a sudden that was the game where just Patrick Mahomes just basically took over that game. I'm not saying Bo Nix is Patrick Mahomes, but I'm scared that that's going to be the same situation here with the Steelers. Regardless, though, even though there's still concerns about whether or not Russell Wilson will play or not, which I think he should. I mean, this should be a game where if he's healthy enough to go, I would put Russell Wilson in to give him a chance to go after his former team. But regardless of how it goes, I feel like this is going to be like the Falcons game. It's going to be a low-scoring game. Hopefully the Steelers can reach the end zone and actually show some more room on offense here. Like, throw it down the field more. Go for the end zone. Like, do more than what you did last week against an Atlanta team that was still trying to figure out its mojo. I still think Pittsburgh wins this one. I think they go to 2-0 over Denver, but I would not be surprised if Denver pulls the upset here. But I'm sticking with the Steelers as my pick. Speaking of AFC West versus AFC North, Cincinnati, and Kansas City. Kansas City barely got out of the kickoff game with a win against Baltimore, but Cincinnati usually starts off slow, but then as the season goes on, they do find that life again. I mean, that's what happened the last couple times they started off at 0-1. Like, they usually will find a way to get it all back together again. Joe Burrow and the Bengals didn't do that well against New England last week, mostly because Joe Burrow has been off the rate, hasn't been on that team since mid-November when he got injured, and it's been a struggle to get them back into full swing of things, and they didn't get back into the full swing of things until very late in the game, but by then it was already too little too late. And I think Kansas City comes out swinging in this one, coming off of the success they had the previous week. I don't think the Bengals have enough power there to get them through this one again. I think Kansas City wins this one. They go to 2-0. Bengals once again drop to 0-2. Indianapolis and Green Bay. Jordan Love, of course, not playing, so it's going to be Malik Willis, which we kind of expect Malik Willis to be better than he was in the final seconds of that game. But the Colts put up a fight against the Texans. Even though they lost, there were times when Anthony Richardson shown that he could be a deadly threat. So this has a possibility of being his big breakout game, especially if he has to play against Malik Willis, because Malik Willis hasn't been adjusted to that system yet, because he just got there a couple weeks before the regular season began, so he hasn't really had that time to really get adjusted to the starting offense in general. Malik Willis should be better this week for Green Bay, but if I'm choosing between Indianapolis and Green Bay, I'm going with Indianapolis. I think they find a way to win this one. Anthony Richardson gets a big breakout win for him. I'll go with the Colts in this one. 1-1 for them. Packers 0-2. The Los Angeles Chargers and the Carolina Panthers. Carolina looked horrible against New Orleans. I mean, 47-10 was the final score in that game. New Orleans put up 30 points in the first half to Carolina's 3 points. Now, I don't know if that's just because Carolina is just such a terrible team this year, but they're still in a rebuilding phase. Or were they really as bad as they were advertised? Are the Chargers really as good as they were advertised when they beat the Raiders? I mean, Chargers look good. They got the win, benefiting on J.K. Dobbins running for over 100 yards. But I think this could be another easy win for them in general, because they're not playing a team they're playing a team that's not really all that good, and we don't know what kind of a system they're building for Bryce Young with Dave Canales as the head coach. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jim Harbaugh has the second win back in the NFL, and I think the Chargers go 2-0. Carolina, I think, drops to 0-2. Super Bowl 49 rematch, Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. Seattle looked pretty good last week against the Denver Broncos. New England looked pretty good against Cincinnati. I think New England's building something where, it'll keep them in the games. I think keep them in games going forward. I think they did a pretty good job with Jacoby Brissett under center and relying on Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, they paid them the big bucks for a reason. I think it's enough to get them over the Seahawks this time around. I think if New England continues to play as well as they did against Cincinnati, I think they'll be able to stop Seattle overall. Seattle will put up a good fight there, but I'm going to say the Patriots win this one 2-0. Seattle drops to 1-1. The Houston Texans and the Chicago Bears on Sunday Night Football. Chicago didn't look pretty good in the beginning. Caleb Williams, did not have the best game in general, but he did win his first start in the NFL. And the defense and the special teams came up big for Chicago in that game. But the Texans look like a team. But the Texans are easily my AFC. They're my AFC pick for the Super Bowl in general. So I think they are a team that definitely can be as good as they were last year, and even improve on that, because they upgraded their roster a bit more than they did last year. And they showed a lot of gut during the win against the Colts. C.J. Stroud still looks about as good as you can ask for. Stephon Diggs got a couple of touchdowns. Joe Mixon, the new additions to the team, are making their presence known. The defense is as stacked as ever. I think they welcome Chicago in, and they go in there beating them and showing everybody that, hey, the Texans are for real. So yeah, I get the Texans to win. 2-0 to Houston. Chicago dropping to 1-1. San Francisco at Minnesota. Minnesota decimated the New York Giants, but then again, the New York Giants are showing that they're probably not going to be a very good team this year, especially considering that you know, the reason why their offense looks so good the last couple of years, Saquon Barkley is now over in a division in another divisional opponent's home, and now you're relying on Malik Neighbors and Daniel Jones pretty much. And yeah, I would not be surprised if the New York Giants are going to try to play for the. Why am I talking about the New York Giants? Because they lost to the Vikings, but I'll save my thoughts on the Giants a little bit later. But the Minnesota Vikings did pretty well overall, despite the fact that they were playing a team like the New York Giants, which does not look like a very good football team in general. And I think that win they got doesn't really say a whole lot about them as a team, especially when their next opponent is the San Francisco 49ers, which if Monday night is any indication, this is the team that will find a way back into the NFC play championship and maybe back to the Super Bowl again. Especially considering that they don't have Christian McCaffrey, who could be out again this week. I think they're saying that he's limited, but there's also a possibility that he may be out for this game. But if you can run on the back of Jordan Mason again, like you did against the New York Jets, you can run over this team. And this 49ers team, you know, I criticize him a lot. I really do not like Brock Purdy because I think that this team gets way too many lucky passes, and like passes that any other quarterback in the league, if they even try to do this, it would either not go, it'd be incomplete, it would either be picked off. But like, I don't know. Regardless, I think the 49ers will probably wake the Minnesota Vikings up and give them the idea that Minnesota Vikings are probably not going to be an overall great team this year, even with the talent that they have, except for the quarterback position. I think they go into Minnesota. I think they beat the 49ers beat the Minnesota Vikings easily. San Francisco 2-0, Vikings 1-1. All right, last crop of games here. Cowboys and the Saints. Saints dismantled the Carolina Panthers 47-10. Cowboys beat the Browns pretty convincingly. What was it, 31-10, I think. But the Cowboys looked pretty good in that game. But then again, is that because they're actually a good team? They're actually a better team this year, or is it because the Browns are going to be as bad of a team as they are? With the Saints as well, are the Saints for real, or did they benefit by just playing against a really bad Carolina Panthers team? I think this game will definitely give us a lot more answers to those questions about who's going to come out of this really being one of the best teams in the NFL, because we have the Saints who put 47 over Carolina, and then you have the Cowboys who have a lineup that includes Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and a defense that includes Micah Parsons that all played pretty well against Cleveland. But then again, it's Cleveland. Is this team going to be as good as they were last year, or is this just one of those situations where they're just regular season champs, and then when they get to the postseason, it just kind of all just fades away? But we'll see. But I think Dallas has got a good chance to win this one. I think they knocked down the New Orleans Saints a punch. I think that the New Orleans will give it their best to try to keep it a fair fight, but I don't know. I think Dallas probably wins this one. They usually have had the upper hand against the Saints in the last couple of years, so I would not be surprised if it happens again. So I have the Cowboys going 2-0, Saints 1-1. Now let's talk about the New York Giants, because they have to go to Washington. Like I said, I don't think the New York Giants are going to be a good football team this year, and I think they might be in very high contention for the number one pick, and that would probably be a new quarterback. The best quarterback available, probably Quinn Ewers from Texas, or if they really want to go down that route, Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, which I don't think that's going to happen, but I think it's going to be more likely Quinn Ewers. But yeah, the Giants just don't look very good, and they're going up against the Commanders team that why do I have them as 2-0? Oh, they lost to Tampa Bay last week. Okay, I made a mistake on this list I have here, but the Commanders, Jayden Daniels showed some promise last week against Tampa Bay. I think this team looks better overall. Dan Quinn has trying to get this team back on track in general, and I think they go into this game and show that against a really bad New York Giants team. I think they will go in there, and they will give the Giants a cold hard taste of reality. I think the Commanders win this one 1-1. And then the Giants drop to 0-2. Speaking of the Buccaneers, their next stop is the Detroit Lions, and last year in the NFC divisional round, the Lions beat them pretty convincingly. They won a thriller in overtime on Sunday night last week. Detroit Lions is my NFC pick for the Super Bowl this year, so I have Houston and Detroit in there as the dream pick in general of who I think the Super Bowl should be. And I think they should have no problem going into having Tampa Bay come back in there and beat them. Like, Tampa Bay's been playing pretty good, but I think Detroit has been the overall better team this last year in general, and I think that will continue into this game coming up here. So I give the Detroit Lions the win in this one, 2-0 for them. Buccaneers dropping to 1-1. Los Angeles Rams and the Cardinals. Both teams lost after having possibilities to win their games from last week, but Arizona is a very mixed bag team. I think that they have a lot more hype to them because of not only Kyler Murray coming back, but also having Marvin Harrison Jr. there to be a big weapon for them. But they're going up against the Los Angeles Rams team that played pretty well, despite the fact they lost Puka Nacua to injury last week against Detroit. I mean, once Puka left, that team looked like they did during the Super Bowl run. I mean, that looked like a team that looked like the old Rams I remember, and the ones that just was dominating that game for the most part until the Lions found a way to win it at the end. So I think the Rams find a way to get this win. They get on the winning mark on this one. Rams go to 1-1. Cardinals drop to 0-2. And finally, we have Monday Night Football. Atlanta versus Philadelphia. Philadelphia played a convincingly good game in Brazil last week with Saquon Barkley just dominating the offense in general. And they look like the team they were the first half of last year before they fell off in December. But this team looked like the team that we all saw in that 10-0 run that they had. But yeah, the Philadelphia Eagles look like a really good football team. Atlanta still has a lot of kinks. I think we'll definitely see more from them this time around instead of what they did with the Steelers. I think with more time getting to know their playbook, their ideas of what they're trying to accomplish here. But I think Atlanta will be better, but it's not going to be enough to get past Philadelphia. I think the Eagles win this one they go to 2-0, and the Falcons drop to 0-2. I don't have these scores out here because I don't usually follow the scores in general, so that's why there's no scores on here. So my picks for the week, just to recap: Miami over Buffalo, the Jets over the Titans, the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Browns, the Ravens over the Raiders, the Steelers over the Broncos, the Chiefs over the Bengals, the Colts over the Packers, the Chargers over the Panthers, the Patriots over the Seahawks, the Texans over the Bears, the 49ers over the Vikings, the Cowboys over the Saints, the Commanders over the Giants, the Lions over the Buccaneers, the Rams over the Cardinals, and the Eagles over the Falcons. So we'll see what happens this week. I did pretty good last week. How good am I going to do this week? You'll have to find out next Wednesday to find out. So if you enjoyed this, hit the like and subscribe button. I'll see you guys next time.